Hi guys, welcome back to Roots and Branches. This is Christine Mola, your host. So in our last episode with Stephanie Stanton, we explored the leadership of healing and what it means to serve with heart while honoring our boundaries. And what often follows boundaries is something even deeper, a return. A return to the self we may have set aside while being strong, responsible, successful, or needed. Because many women don't lose themselves all at once. We slowly shape our identities around roles, expectations, and survival. So today's conversation is about returning home to yourself, your identity, your worth, and your true sense of belonging. And this is a conversation that requires both compassion and courage. And today I'm excited to welcome with me Ms. Naomi Rafalowicz, not only a major colleague and wonderful transformation coach, but a good friend of mine. So welcome, Naomi. So I'm going to blow her up a little bit here as I do with all of our guests. So Naomi, and I have to take my glasses off for it. So you are a professional life transition coach. And the founder of Mind Spirit Coaching, right? So Naomi, your work centers on guiding individuals, especially women, navigating life transitions, right? Back to clarity, purpose, and authentic alignment with who they truly are. Yeah. Kind of like our conversation today. And through her coaching, she helps people reconnect with their inner wisdom, rediscover their life purpose, and move forward with intention, right? Intention is everything, and that's a big word for this year. And that is rather than expectation, intention. So your work speaks so beautifully to identity, worth, and belonging that you are the perfect guest to have with us today to return to self. So welcome.
Thank you.
Applause.
Yay. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I'm happy to have you. So, so with that, here enters into our conversation about returning to self, and the identities that we get caught up in as we're going through our transitions, right? So over time, we get caught up in being mom, professional, grandmother, depending on where that falls place in our timeline, and who we are versus what we do, right? Who am I versus what we do? That's such an entanglement at times, right?
Absolutely. It's inevitable too.
Yeah.
I always tell people it's not something to judge yourself for. It is, to me, this is my opinion, just completely inevitable.
Inevitable to get entangled in that,
yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, one of our previous episodes, we talk about the chameleon. It's the masks that we put on, we take off, we put on, we take off. And sometimes it's hard to decipher. And we take a look at the table. Look at all those masks. So how do you speak to that? And rediscovering our identities at this time?
Well, it's so funny you said that because Anyway, I actually have masks that I use that I just used this past weekend to talk about that. Oh, wow. Well, I think there are several issues that happen to us, right? I believe that, and I always knew this, but I couldn't figure out how to get to my true core essence self, right? So I totally always knew that there was this me within me, but I had a hard time connecting to it. I believe too that, it's something that shows itself with age, wisdom, and experience for most of us. But for some of us, it really stays front and center all the time, like from childhood to adolescence.
The identity crisis,
to
you're
teenage,
saying, right?
Like there are some people that I've met, young people, right? Yeah. Who I think are very connected to what I call their core self, their true self, their essence. Yeah. For me, it was a total journey, because there just needed to be an unfolding. And when I was talking about how it's inevitable, I mean, we all have roles. We all have roles that we play, and it's very easy. I wonder if it's almost necessary to get lost in the role so that you can come back to yourself sometimes. It was true for me, not for everyone, right?
Oh, no, I couldn't agree more. Literally getting lost is how I came back, I
remember.
I talk about, which actually created this whole podcast, coming from a pause that I spent a year intentionally. It became an intentional pause, but I was sort of kicked into it. And then I made it an intention, the universe said, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it was the entangling of who we thought, or I thought I was, and so forth and so on. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not alone. So, that even just blends into the next thought of the worth beyond our productivity. We are attached to productivity, and you know that's like a cliche for everyone. We wear a badge of productivity, whether we're a mom, however we're operating, whether we're a sister, a daughter, a professional.
Right.
We identify with how much more we can do. How do we do better? How are we better to our parents, our kids, blah. Right. And so go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, well, I think that's true for all of us. And that's the whole reawakening and separating, which can happen at any time, because a lot of the work I want to go back for a minute to a little story that I share
and
with
everybody
people.
knows that we're just having tea in these conversations.
We're having tea and water.
We're spilling the tea, right?
Yeah, definitely. And blooming, right?
Yes, and we're blooming.
Yeah, so I grew up in a family where my dad really had kind of a spiritual connection. My mother was more like, whatever, you guys are talking now. But so I knew there was this somehow this me that was part of me, but we didn't really explore it a lot. There were some times, but through my 20s and 30s and 40s, I was kind of always searching for me. And those buzzwords were already around, when I was young too, like your authentic self, your true self, be your true self. And I would go, Christine, I would go to workshops. I would go
as a younger
to lectures.
Person. That's so cool.
In my 30s, 40s, especially 30s was very pivotal for me because I was not in the place that I thought I was going to be when I was 30, 35, and 40. So I kept looking for the me. And I would go to workshops and I would read books and, do all those things. Like I want to be aligned. I want to be my true self. And I knew that I wasn't being my true self. And I would have these conversations in my head with myself and a few close friends around how is it possible that I don't know me because I am me, right? It's this weird, and it made me feel bad. Who would know me if it's not me?
Yeah.
So I remember this one time I went to this workshop. I don't know, it was at a hotel somewhere. And it was about your true self, something like that. And people were walking out in the parking lot. And they were all excited, right? Oh my gosh, that was so amazing. And it was nice to meet you. I'm like, oh my gosh, it was so nice to meet you. Yeah. Have I told you this story?
No.
And I got in my car. And
I haven't heard this story. Yeah, I love it.
I got in my car and I said to myself, what the blank? What the heck are you guys talking about? I felt so
That's awesome. Aww,
I don't know anything more than I did walking in. They were all like, oh my God.
So you wonder if they really did feel it or if it, right. Mm-hmm.
I thought it was me.
Sure, yeah.
And maybe they did. Back then I did probably thought what the heck, you guys. I wasn't ready. It wasn't the right kind of thing. And it wasn't until really years later that I was through my coach training and through my life experience, I was getting there. Because I knew, right? We all identify when we're not being our true selves. There's something in our body. When I was teaching and I was being teacher instead of Naomi, or I was holding back joy, or I wasn't being goofy, or I was being serious, and I was it's not really me, but it's the right me for now. So I'm not judging it.
It's part of the identity, the masks that we wear, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was during this sort of my oh my gosh, there I am, when I finally remembered, I really remembered not my values, my core values,
your
core what you were talking about,
your core
the roles,
essence. Yes,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because our values come from so many places: our culture, our faith, our families, the
number
places
one, our
we
families,
work, all of those places.
For sure.
TV, movies, expectations. I took on a lot of values around being a teacher. I was a special ed teacher for 35 years.
We didn't mention that, which was one of the most precious things. Yeah.
they were
that I personally relate to, having a special needs
yes,
daughter.
It was one of the joys of my life. This one is the second one, being able to do this work. But those values were incredible. But I can look back now, and I've been looking back to realize some of those values were my actual core values, and some of them were not. They were the values of being an ethical, professional teacher.
Well, they were your values of that moment, of that time.
Yeah. And those were values I want to hang on to, but they weren't my core values. So what happened was, when I was honoring and living those values that were not my core values, I was banging up against myself. And I didn't know why.
Didn't that hurt?
It was uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable.
Sometimes it hurt.
Yeah.
Sometimes it made me frustrated or angry, because I thought, what's going on? Why does this not feel right? Like I'm wearing the wrong clothes, shoes that are too tight. Absolutely. We all know about shoes that are too tight.
Shoes that are too tight, absolutely. Well, that's part of the costume. I mean, that's part of how we evolve. Yeah. And I'm so impressed with the fact that you were visiting this or being a part of it in your 30s, because in my 30s, as everyone, our journeys are very different. I was also knee deep in identity issues in my 30s, but I had my kids in my 20s. So, we all have our very different journeys, but to be in that space in your 30s, and I'm going to speak to that briefly, just because and we speak of our friends, our families, but my daughters are in their 30s, and what a time, and I can specifically remember being that age, knowing that, and I've said that's such a bridge point, your 30s, right? So to jump into really awareness, and to your credit, even though you weren't aware, like you're like, what am I doing here? It was still, that's a beautiful time, to discover that.
It's
to take it to the next level, right? To take it to the next level.
Yeah, and it's honoring everybody's journey. I had regrets. I don't have regrets now, like about not doing more work or finding the right support. It wouldn't have brought me here, and so but that
only comes with wisdom.
It comes with wisdom and a little bit with age.
And totally with age. I mean, and we have to, that's part of this journey, these conversations that we're having. We are all speaking to different generations, from youngins up to older, and we've spent that time. But what's that thing? The youth is wasted on the young, and ain't that the truth? Because however,
right?
You can't teach that stuff. It's got to be learned, right?
Some of it has to be learned. But I do think there is some of it that I had really interesting people that came into my path in my 30s. These, I call them wise women.
Absolutely.
The women that taught me about herbs and aromatherapy. Even I look back at when I was a student teacher, a senior in college. I had a cooperating teacher. She doesn't know. I need to look her up. She was one of the great mentors in my life too.
And what did she do?
She was a teacher. So I taught in her classroom as a student teacher. And I remember just being in awe of the way she was. So like in the work that I did on myself, you talked about, it's not just the doing, right? But I came to understand much more clearly my life purpose. The values that are like the like in my DNA, those values, understanding that my values are different than your values. Maybe they overlap, maybe they don't overlap at all. But she, I think, really lived her values, I guess. And she really understood her purpose, not just as a teacher.
Well, you were there to receive that. So,
oh my gosh, it was amazing.
So whether she was, wherever she was in her identity journey, you were there to capture that. And it gave your identity essence.
I was.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
So I think everybody and people listening can, go back and think about like, who were those sort of pivotal people? There were people in your family, probably, and there were all these other people along the way, women and men who, like now I can look back and I can even learn more about it. Like I remember her. Her name was Sharon. Her name is Sharon, And like she
Hi,
taught me
Sharon.
things. I know. And
Yes.
because I was about to leave, I wasn't going to finish my degree, actually. I was going to not complete my teaching degree because I had not a bad experience the semester before. And I got placed with her, and I thought, oh, that was just a bad experience.
Oh, that was divine.
It wasn't that I
placement.
didn't like teaching. I loved special ed. That was so.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
forgot where we started on this, but
I don't know.
that
We just go into conversation.
Yeah, that whole thing. Just about not knowing myself, and so now, I mean, you have to. I'm gentler with myself. You're gentler with yourself.
Yes,
I'm thinking,
very much so.
Well,
the grace, the gentleness of being, and we are still our own best judgers. We're not going to say worst enemies. We're going to say we're our best judgers, right? But we do get softer. We get a little bit softer. But, we also honor the not so softness. Okay. I'll give you a funny, I'm a Post-it note queen. And I don't know. My brain is on Post-it notes all the time. So I decided to put Post-it notes on my mirrors, in the bathroom and in my bedroom, just because sometimes you just want to talk to yourself, and come back to center when you've moved over here. One of the notes that I have is, there you are, you're still becoming. And it's just a reminder that every day we are still becoming, So you can either shove a bunch of Post-it notes or journal it out. But either way, just giving ourselves the grace through that, right? So with all that being said, and we were talking about generations, and that's kind of how it came through in the 30s into the 40s into the glorious 50s and 60s and onward. As we wrap up this conversation of returning to self, in this short conversation that we have, because there is so much more conversation you can have with this woman after here. What do we want to leave our viewers with today? Our listeners, what they're hearing and receiving.
Yeah, I actually wrote something down that I was thinking about.
I dropped my notes if you guys didn't notice that.
That would usually be me. I was thinking about it this morning, and what came up for me was the question, what kind of life do I dream of having, and what kind of life am I willing to have?
Dreams versus will. Dreams versus choice?
Yeah. And I sort of pondered it for a minute, because I do a lot of the time feel like I'm living in my dream life. And there are things that I want to bring into the dream life still. This second career, being able to coach and work with people and lead retreats and have people put on masks and take it off. But there's more.
Yeah.
There's more. And rather than feeling the lack, the question that kept coming up is, what am I willing to try?
Yeah.
What am I willing to try? And how will I feel if I don't try? Because I don't have to try.
Right.
I don't want to put the pressure on myself. I love that,
but that's the bridge of coming out of the lack of, right, oh, I'm doing all of these great things, but I really want to do these too. Yeah. Well, do them.
What am I willing to try today?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, what am I willing to try today?
That's it. That's what. What are you willing to try today? What am I willing to try today to expand? I love that. Oh, I have a list.
I do too. And there are people that will help me figure that out.
Absolutely.
Not by giving advice, by listening and just letting me
breathe it out. Love that.
Yeah.
And being in conversations like this, and this is why we're doing this. It's called Roots and Branches, really getting to the root and then the branches of blooming, and it's, the cliche of blooming, because that's what this is all about. So non-cliche. Well, thank you, Ms. Naomi. So Naomi, on top of her coaching, you just wrapped up, we have to say, you just wrapped up a fabulous retreat this past weekend that you did by the shore, right? In the Connecticut shoreline with 6 amazing attendees.
Yes, 6 attendees
and you do
2
these twice a
other
year.
People facilitating with me. I do it twice a year. It's at a beautiful, 120-year-old beach house.
I saw it.
Oh, you saw the beach house, right? Yeah. Isn't it? It has got great energy.
Right down on the shoreline.
I mean, there are a lot of people doing amazing retreats. My retreat, the focus, one of the themes of retreat is always return to self. And we do this amazing self-discovery.
How ironic.
And I had no intention of doing a retreat. I told you this whole thing. I went to visit the house. I stood in the living room. The manager said, how long have you been doing retreats? And I said, I've never done a retreat, and I will take it for this weekend. Yeah,
seed planted.
Yeah. But it was amazing. Yeah. I mean, one-on-one coaching is clearly living my purpose. Working with people without telling them what to do or how to do it at all. Retreats are this beautiful bonus. And I wanted to do something like in Connecticut. Like you can get in your car and you can be there an hour and get home in an hour. And all kinds of other things.
It's the perfect place to host your retreats. And,
lovely.
And even in conversation with you, you have such a warm, inviting way about you. So, and I know everybody that knows her agrees.
Thank you.
So truth. So now today we're just going to say thank you so much, Naomi. I want to be sure that everybody here listening, watching knows that her contact information will be in the show notes. So please do reach out. My contact information is always in the show notes. And thanks for being with us. And until we see you again, stay rooted, stay rising, and always stay blooming. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
See you soon, guys. Take care.